My name is Kathy Harrison, one of the co-chairs of this year's event. On behalf of my fellow co-chairs, Sandy Anderson, who you met out at the registration table, and Jen Emmerich, and an amazing group of DFL women, we'd like to welcome you today to the 12th annual celebration of the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. Thank you for being here to help us celebrate the contributions of DFL leaders, activists, and volunteers. Please take your seats and listen as we take a moment to tell the story of how it all began 12 years ago.
10 years ago, a small group of remarkable women believed that the vital contributions of DFL women should be celebrated in the style that DFL women deserve. The members of this group were Gail Huntley, Beth LaRoe, Sarah Leverance, Mary McAvoy, Betsy O'Berry, Judy Shermer, and Jackie Stevenson. Being women of action, they decided to honor the women leaders of this party and started the Women's Summit Committee. This original committee took the bold step of creating the DFL Women's Hall of Fame and going back to the DFL party structure to notify them of their creation afterwards. These women never asked permission to host this event. Keeping true to many female trailblazers before them, they simply took the leap of faith forward and created the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is a concrete way to honor the contributions of women to our party and is unique in several ways. For the past 10 years, this grassroots event has encouraged everyone across the state to participate. Each year, the Women's Summit Committee solicits nominations on behalf of outstanding women from across Minnesota. The DFL Women's Hall of Fame is a one-of-a-kind event. It is the only DFL award ceremony that focuses exclusively on women. The women we have honored over the past decade represent a broad range of activists statewide that make up our whole DFL party. The DFL Women's Hall of Fame is also the only DFL award ceremony that does not focus on individuals currently holding elective office or party leadership on the congressional district level and above. It is our belief that we need to honor women not currently in the spotlight. That's not to say elected officials can't or don't win our awards, but rather they are not honored while currently serving in office. This ensures we remain true to our grassroots principles. We also identify and honor the new women of all ages that will become the future leaders of our party. Therefore, the Women's Summit Committee, from the beginning, established a Rising Stars category to acknowledge and encourage new and emerging leaders. Since the year 2000, we have honored over 130 women. One of the founders' greatest beliefs was that a woman, once she was honored as a woman of distinction, would always be a woman of distinction.
We would like to have all past women of distinction and rising stars stand for a moment for us to recognize their achievements. Please, all past rising stars and past honorees. Past. Thank you very much. Our honorees are all outstanding women who continue to make major contributions to public policy, the DFL party, campaigns on behalf of the DFL candidates, and to the DFL principals and its platform. Thank you for your continued work and for continuing to make us proud to be DFL women.
As we sit down to enjoy our meals today, it needs to be said that the Women's Summit Committee is a group that understands that L in DFL stands for labor. We are at the Minneapolis Hilton today because it's a union hotel. The important connection between organized labor and everyday struggles and advances of women should not be overlooked. As women struggle for economic justice, it has been organized labor that's often led the way. While women nationally make only 77 cents for each dollar men earn, under a union contract, women earn the same pay for the same work. We understand. We understand that women too frequently can't take active roles in politics because they're too busy working to make ends meet for themselves and their family. Organized labor's contributions and advances to the economic status of women allows them to participate in what has too frequently become a social luxury, politics. We know that when more women partake in politics, they gain not only political freedom, but increased social and economic freedoms as well. It is in recognition of the important cycle of economic, social, and political empowerment and its connection to organized labor that we respect, support, and honor labor today on behalf of all working people in Minnesota. Please join me in thanking the fantastic staff at the Minneapolis Hilton who prepared and served our wonderful meals today.
It is also important to take a moment to recognize our sponsors because without them, this event would not be possible. Our ticket price only covers the cost of your meal. It is the generous contributions of our sponsors that pay for our honorees' meals, programs, invitations, and scholarships. Our sponsors' names are listed in our program. Many of them are with us today, and we would like to ask them to stand as we show our thanks for their generous support of this event. Please stand. Thank you. Our committee has been told time and time again how wonderful the DFL Women's Hall of Fame luncheon event is, and we couldn't agree more. It is truly a toss-up as to who gets more pleasure out of today's event, the women honored or our committee who gets to spread so much joy to so many people. Please enjoy your meal, and we will begin the rest of our program at 1:15. Thank you.
I'll let you go.
Good afternoon. I hope everyone has been enjoying their meals, great conversation in the company of outstanding DFL men and women. It's now time to start the presentation of our awards. We'll start by honoring our party's everyday heroes, our women of distinction. These women have been selected because they are trailblazers for other women in our party. They have committed time, energy, and heart to the DFL. Our women of distinction have worked for public policies consistent with our principles. Our women of distinction have opened doors and infused the party with new ideas and energy. Our winners today are, simply stated, women of distinction. The women on stage today presenting the awards are members of the Women's Summit Committee. They have volunteered their time for the last 6 months to make this event today a reality. In the interest of time, we ask that you hold your applause until we present our winners with their awards. Our first presenter today is former Rising Star Elizabeth Scott.
Our first honoree, Marge Anderson, is a woman of distinction, not just in DFL circles, but everywhere she goes. In 1991, Marge was the first woman to become chief executive of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. She was unanimously appointed to this position after the death of Arthur Gabo and easily won re-election in her own right in 1992. As chief executive and secretary-treasurer of the band before that, Marge was the driving force behind the opening of Grand Casino Mille Lacs in 1991 and Grand Casino Hinckley in '92. This is a band-owned enterprise that has virtually eliminated reservation unemployment and created an economic boom in the surrounding area. She has guided the band's corporate commission to diversify their economic ventures, and she has led the tribe in issuing community improvement bonds backed by casino revenues to fund reservation construction projects like new schools, a health clinic, community centers, a wastewater treatment facility, and other reservation infrastructure. Marge first got involved in DFL politics while she was a District 1 representative for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. Former Governor Rudy Perpich was touring the state and landed in the baseball field on the reservation. And Marge was there to greet him and give him a tour of the community. Also, Congressman Jim Oberstar visited Grand Casino Mille Lacs when they first opened their doors in '91. But what really inspired her to get involved in politics was when she began to pursue economic development for the reservation. The Bureau of Indian Affairs was telling us and other tribes in Minnesota where and what they could build, as if they knew what was best for our people. She started utilizing the funds that the tribe had to work on the self-government's policy that became permanent in '94 and that still exists today. This allowed tribes to determine how to use federal funds that would have greater impact on their people and alleviate many federal bureaucracies. Also, she worked with the state of Minnesota's Driver and Motor Vehicles Office so that the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe could provide their own license plates, tabs, and other vehicle services right on the reservation. Marge has been a great help to many DFL candidates running for office. Most recently, Marge helped promote Margaret Anderson Kelleher, another one of this year's Women of Distinction, for the 2010 governor's race. Marge was invited to speak at the 2010 DFL convention in support of Anderson Kelleher. And because of Marge's strong leadership, many other tribes followed suit and also got behind Anderson Kelleher for the governor's race. Recently, Marge also supported other great DFL women like Gail Kulik for state rep and Lisa Phoebe for state senate, who represented the reservation. Another notable moment for Marge was when she served two-year terms as a Minneapolis area regional vice president for the National Congress of American Indians and worked on their national coordinating committee to advise the transition team for President Clinton. For her lifetime of achievement in raising the standard of living and dignity in her own community, in our state, and around our nation, Marge has received many awards, including being selected as one of the 100 most influential Minnesotans of the 20th century. It is my honor to induct Marge into the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. Miigwech, thank you, Marge, for your years of commitment to the DFL and Indian country. Our next presenter will be Tammy Teskey-Asen. Thank you.
Mentor, advocate, volunteer, teacher, doer. These are all words we use to describe our DFL Women of Distinction, and they're all words that describe our next honoree, Bonnie Jude. Bonnie is a shining example of what it truly means to be a DFL Woman of Distinction. For those who have known or worked with Bonnie in Senate District 46, her work as a delegate, director, secretary, state central committee, and state platform commission member, as well as her service on numerous other subcommittees, is nothing new, nor is her work ethic. Bonnie is more than just a member of the DFL. She's one of the go-to people. She's fully engaged in the needs of her district and isn't afraid of doing the grunt work. As Kathleen Nelson from Brooklyn Park put it, Bonnie gets it. She understands that by doing the grunt work, you increase voter turnout, and that's better for Democrats. Bonnie has never been afraid of hard work or for working hard for what she believes in. While she was born and raised a Democrat, the real motivation behind her commitment to the DFL stems from her desire to be involved in her local community and to make a positive difference in the world. Bonnie credits her initial involvement and subsequent leadership with the district and the DFL party to the encouragement of her friend, Jean Schivel. 20 years ago, when Bonnie moved first to Brooklyn Center, she saw an ad in the local newspaper inviting Democrats to come and screen for director positions in the district. She made an appointment for the screening with Jean, and Jean was chair of the screening committee. Bonnie said later, it truly changed her life. With Jean's mentorship, Bonnie jumped into DFL politics with both feet and hasn't stopped jumping in since. These days, however, Bonnie is the one who's encouraging neighbors and friends to get involved. In fact, it was Bonnie who encouraged her neighbor, Mary Marquardt, who's here today as well, to attend caucuses with her. And then Bonnie served as a mentor to Mary, who later then went on to become chair of the district. Bonnie's DFL values are also lived in her daily life as an educator. She holds a master's degree in education and educational psychology with a licensure in special education in the area of emotional and behavioral disorders from the University of Minnesota. Bonnie has used this background to work with students who have a hard time thriving in regular school environments. And for over 27 years, she taught language arts and social studies in adolescent mental health day treatment settings, first at the University Day Community and then at Northwest Educational and Therapeutic Services. And then for the last 2 years has taught students with learning or emotional disorders at charter schools. Bonnie's commitment to education goes far beyond the classroom. She's volunteered for countless pro-education candidates, has worked in support of countless school levies, and serves as regional coordinator currently for the national We the People program, which is part of the Center for Civics Education. In addition to her advocacy on educational issues, Bonnie has been a strong advocate over the years for mental health services for children and adolescents and for reproductive rights for women and girls. Bonnie has always been a Democrat and over the years has served the DFL party well in every grunt job, in every party position, and for every Democratic candidate in her district. She has spent her lifetime mentoring, teaching, advocating, volunteering, just doing. Bonnie Jude is truly an example of what it means to be a DFL Woman of Distinction, and it is my honor today to welcome her to the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. Our next award will be presented by Jackie Stevenson.
Margaret Anderson Kelleher needs no introduction to this group. Most of you know that she is only the second woman to serve as Speaker of the House in Minnesota, and in 2010 became the first woman to be endorsed for the role of governor by a major political party in Minnesota. Stand up. This was after serving in the House for several terms, and prior to this, Margaret worked for the UDF as deputy director, field director, and also worked in several legislative offices, among them Senator Alan Spears, whom many of you remember. The 1988 Dukakis Phone Bank in St. Paul was coordinated by Margaret while she was still a student at Gustavus, who even gave her credit for doing this and an internship. So she knows how to negotiate, folks. After graduating and moving to St. Paul, she chaired the Dayton for Auditor campaign, which is another thing I didn't remember. Her best friend during her growing up years, who helped her cover the farm grounds outside of Mankato, was Charlie Brown, her dog. When Margaret was a fourth grader, one day she came home from school and a letter had come to her parents. And get this, folks, at this ripe age. The bus routings were going to change, and Margaret was going to be moved to a different elementary school. Well, she did not take to this very well. She created a petition, she circulated it, and she delivered it to the school board. Sadly to say, she lost. But her mom, who is here with us today, said she knew right then and there that Margaret was different. As president of the student council, oh, she's back by her mom, okay. As president of the Student Council in high school, the first female in many years to serve in that role, one of the jobs was to act as MC of the ceremony where the homecoming queen would be crowned. And it was her job to crown the homecoming queen. Now the school administration, bear in mind this is Mankato, back in 1984 or somewhere around there, 85. The school administration was concerned about a female crowning another female to be homecoming queen. Thank you, Al. So Margaret and her mother had been shopping and had purchased the school colors red, white, and black chiffon gown for her to wear to the event. So Margaret thought, well, enough of this nonsense, and she put the dress on and showed up at school and walked into the principal's office and said, this is what I'm going to be wearing to the event to crown the homecoming queen. And he sputtered and fussed, and that was the end of that. She crowned the homecoming queen. Margaret was always a good student and active in 4-H, among other things. She went to DC to lobby for the University of Minnesota Extension Service and actually had her 18th birthday on Capitol Hill. She also worked very hard during her 15th to 17th years on what was then the farm crisis, which was disastrous for a lot of their neighbors and friends. And as a result, she turned many people out to caucuses. She was elected a state convention delegate in 1988 and a Simon national delegate at the 2nd District Convention, also in 1988. And that was shortly before that, at the state convention, we met and shared that Atlanta convention together. Margaret and David Kelleher met at the 88 state convention, and love blossomed. Their son Patrick is rowing with his crew today, so he's not here, but he'll be a senior in high school, while Franny, who is here, sitting next to her grandmother, will be a freshman in high school. Patrick, according to Margaret, appears to lean toward party politics, while Franny likes issues. She and Margaret recently lobbied at the Capitol against the Same-Sex Marriage Act, which for someone entering a freshman year, I think is great. In her spare time, Margaret has enjoyed sewing for many years and now serves on the Textile Center Board of Minnesota. She recently, after all the politicking and a little rest, became the president and CEO of the Minnesota High Tech Association. Margaret, I'm so very pleased to welcome you to the DFL Women's Hall of Fame as a woman of distinction. And next to present award is Betsy O'Berry.
One of the best contributions that our next honoree has made to our party has been her willingness to encourage and mentor young people. And it makes sense, because Yvonne Leiser, stand up Yvonne, became active in DFL politics when she was in her 20s. Without giving away her exact age, Yvonne has now been a DFL activist for over 30 years. Yvonne got her start in St. Paul politics, where she says it was fun and easy to be a Democrat. I met Yvonne in the early 90s when we worked on a joint national conference for the American Women's Society of CPAs and the American Society of Women Accountants held in Minneapolis. As two of the more political members of our respective organizations, we had the task of getting letters and proclamations from our legislators. We contacted our two U.S. senators, Paul Wellstone and Rod Grams, and we're told, not surprisingly, that they don't do joint letters. Arnie Carlson's office, however, stepped up to the plate with the Declaration of Women in Accounting Day, but only after a staffer had politely asked the nature of our two groups. I guess a bunch of women in the accounting profession didn't sound too radical, so they did the award, but if they only knew. When her husband, Jack Olson, was transferred to Brainerd in 1994, Yvonne discovered that it takes more work and moral fortitude to stand up for DFL principles in Greater Minnesota. When she moved there, the Planned Parenthood clinic had just been firebombed, and the Gideons were still allowed to hand out Bibles at local public schools. But Yvonne has taken up the challenge, and she's very well known for it. She attends weekly Rotary meetings, and when one visitor gave a speech about asking for more work to clean up the water because bad chemicals in the water were what was making so many people gay, well, several members of Rotary approached Yvonne to do something. She put together an educational program to debunk this myth and found out just how many local people had gay and lesbian children, brothers and sisters, and other relatives. In 2004, Yvonne was asked to run for Senate District 12 chair. With a strong desire to make improvements, she ran and won. Yvonne has brought the district into the 21st century with bulk mailings, PayPal donations, email notices, e-newsletters, and Google Voice. She put together one of the biggest DFL events ever held in the district to honor Don Samuelson after he was defeated. She made the Senate District, which had previously just met every 2 years, an active organization. She opened her home to be the DFL bed and breakfast of choice for many traveling candidates and has hosted many of the local DFL staff members too. Yvonne has relished the role of party chair. She says the job description is not in any manual. She's talked people into being a candidate and talked others out of being a candidate. She's talked to the press and hidden from the press when necessary, and she loves the behind-the-scenes work. One of the things that she's most proud of is working to elect 2 members to the State House of Representatives. One of them, Representative John Ward, said, "If the DFL party had more activists like Yvonne Leiser, we would never lose any election." Yvonne has mentored a 20-year-old young man to replace her as Senate District 12 chair and says she looks forward to being just another quiet, boring accountant. Yvonne, we know better. Welcome to the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. Our next presenter is former Rising Star, Julie Barrow.
I'm very happy to be presenting this Women of Distinction Award to someone who I've always looked up to during my time with the DFL, who unfortunately cannot be with us today due to a family emergency. Lori Berglund Olson is the ultimate team player. She just does whatever needs to be done. She has always felt that the DFL is what's best for Minnesota, and so worked hard to help Democrats succeed and win their races. Lori was born in Fargo, but she grew up all over the world. Her father worked for the U.S. Agency for International Development, which took him to poverty-stricken countries to assist farmers with their agriculture economies. As a child, she witnessed firsthand what happens when a country isn't a democracy or if the government is corrupt. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Lori says the experience of seeing people who had no opportunities solidified her belief that everyone needs the advantages that a democracy affords, and the DFL is the best party to ensure that everyone has those opportunities. Lori lived everywhere. She lived everywhere from the Philippines after the Vietnam War to Honduras and finally Kenya. It was on a home leave between one of her father's assignments that she had her first experience with politics. Lori was a freshman in high school and she was staying with her grandma who took her door knocking. Her grandma handed her a brochure, pointed her to a door and said, "Go get that person to vote for your uncle." Who, of course, was congressional candidate Bob Berglund. Years later in college, Lori walked into her local DFL headquarters and said, "Put me to work." which shocked the county chair, Fran Stromberg, who told her that didn't happen very often. After graduating from high school, Lori's parents sent her back to Thief River Falls, where she had lots of family, to go to school at Northland Technical College. There she earned a degree in architectural drafting. After college, Lori partnered with another architect to open their own drafting and design shop. Unfortunately, those were the years where mortgage interest rates were around 18%, and so many people could not afford to build new houses. Lori had also recently given birth to her first son, Chris, so Lori, who married a farmer, Lyle, in college, left her business to work with her husband on the farm. She says she worked as the hired hand, driving truck and tractor and doing whatever needed to be done. Lori has told me in the past that she preferred to be out in the field rather than inside doing housework, and often swapped jobs with her sons, sending them to the grocery store while she stayed out and finished a chore. Luckily for the DFL, this afforded Lori the time to be involved with her county party unit, and eventually on the 7th Congressional District and state level. Lori has helped and chaired countless committees where she organized caucuses, conventions, fundraisers, and phone banks year after year. If there was a job to be done, Lori would do it. Lori's favorite part of being involved in DFL politics is meeting people from all across Minnesota with like minds. She likes that the DFL is a big enough tent to include minor differences. She says it's a good way to have a party. Lori often visited college classes, presenting the how and why you should get involved in party politics, and was struck by the misconceptions that many students had. They thought that anyone working for politics would get paid by the candidate, that they wouldn't volunteer simply because they believed in the cause. Lori worked hard to change that misconception, and I don't think we could have had a better worker if we had paid her. Now Lori and Lyle are in the process of selling the farm to their oldest son, Chris, and his wife. Her son, Sean, is at medical school at the University of Minnesota in Duluth. And her new full-time job does not afford her the same amount of time to work on DFL projects. But we are very thankful and we honor her for her many years of service to our party. Accepting Lori's award is Lil Ortendahl. Our next award will be presented by Kathleen Murphy.
Hello. Our next honoree is fondly known throughout her district as the DFL Mother and Mrs. DFL. Alice Robinson's 40-year tireless commitment to the party and all that it stands for truly makes this DFL Mother a woman of distinction. Alice was born and raised in St. Paul Park, and her roots run very deep there. She can trace them back to her great-great-grandfather, who was born in 1800 in Prairie du Chien and became a fur trader. Her great-great-grandmother was 100% Mdewakanton Sioux Indian. Their son, her great-grandfather, farmed 350 acres at Great Cloud Island. With the fascination of this kind of history, Alice herself worked for the Minnesota Historical Society as a young girl up until she married her husband Byron in 1951. The following year, she had the first of her 5 children, Hugh, followed by first child Mark, followed by Hugh, Holly, Joy, and Angela. Joy and Angela are here with her today. In 1972, the Robinson family had moved back to Minnesota from Iowa, and one summer day, a young man named Mike Seaven came to their door as a new candidate for the Minnesota House. She and Byron were so impressed with him that they had to help him win. Well, Byron was considered hatched. He had long worked for the Social Security Administration, so was unavailable to visibly support candidates. So he turned to Alice and said, "You'll have to do it all." Boy, did she take that comment to heart. From that election year to this day, Alice Robinson has done everything. Literally, from door knocking to phoning, putting up lawn signs, hosting fundraisers, writing letters to the editor, encouraging new members, and not only attending DFL meetings, but being in every role at every level. And we can't forget about her cakes. Alice is known for her cakes. Gretchen Sieben, wife of Mike, mother of Katie, often remarked, "Alice, you're always in the kitchen." Some of you may recall the famous bean feeds put on for Representative Jerry Sikorsky or Bill Luther. Well, that was Alice in the kitchen of each and every one of those. Not only did she help Sieben, Sikorsky, Luther, she worked endlessly for Pat Beard, Sharon Marco, Katie Sieben, Carla Bingham, and every single statewide candidate, and always with a smile, always in a humble, non-assuming, friendly way. But it wasn't just Alice who helped. It had become a family affair. All of the Robinsons pitched in to help elect DFLers in their district. During one of Mike Sieben's campaigns, she and her daughters were passing out literature at the neighborhood grocery store, but with not much luck. Her daughter Joy decided to start talking to people coming out of the bottle shop next door, and instead found that much more people supported that. Even their youngest daughter, Angie, worked for Bill Luther's campaign for over 6 years. So with the whole family involved, it's no wonder that Senator Katie Sieben said of Alice, "She is the personification of what makes the DFL like another family to me." And Mike and Gretchen Sieben said, "No one is more special to our family. Actually, Alice is a part of our family." And now she is part of this family, the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. I close by sharing a quote directly from Diana Thunheim's nomination of Alice. "This modern-day Renaissance woman inspires and possesses that unique, consummate style of mentorship that can weave the thread of dreams and bring honor to the DFL Women of Distinction Award. It is my honor to welcome Alice Robinson into the DFL Women's Hall of Fame." Our next award will be presented by Sky Miles.
Good afternoon. It is my honor today to tell you about Harriet Wishnick. Harriet Wishnick is from a small town in southern Minnesota called Blooming Prairie in Dodge County. This is very fitting as she reminds me of a blooming prairie. Wild, native, hardy, and resilient. The prairie is unnecessary and overlooked for exotic flowers. Yet without the prairie, we don't have a healthy ecosystem. Without volunteers like Harriet in the DFL ecosystem could fail. Harriet states that she has always been a feminist and a Democrat. When talking to her about her time in college, she is immediately taken back to how exciting it was to be young in the 60s. Harriet stated that it was like being a pioneer to be an activist back then, working for women's rights. Harriet studied business at St. Cloud State. She got her BA in business from the University of Minnesota, her MBA at Mankato State, and she was studying for her PhD in Madison when she realized that her passion was to be a professional volunteer and to be the volunteer and activist for issues she cares about. Harriet got her first start on a campaign working for Senator Paul Wellstone. She came in as a volunteer and became his volunteer coordinator. When asked why she got involved, she explained that getting Democrats elected was the only way to effect change. Wellstone was the start of many campaigns as she worked on as a professional volunteer. A child of the 60s, like a rolling stone, Harriet keeps rolling on. She is always up for new adventures, and she has been part of the DFL and local party units in St. Paul, Minneapolis, Rosemont, Lakeville, Chanhassen, Bloomington, Woodbury, Faribault, and currently in Belle Plaine. As Harriet states, "I get restless if I stay in one place too long." Harriet has a strong passion for inclusion, and she wants to make sure everyone's voice is heard. She will state very clearly that she is an introvert. However, if it is an issue she is passionate about, she will step forward and lead the charge for change. As a volunteer, there is no one more dedicated than Harriet. She is lovingly called the parade queen of CD2. You would be astounded at the total number of parades in the 2nd Congressional District, and even more astounded to learn that Harriet has walked almost all of them. She supports local DFL candidates and local party units. Sean Groth, the chair of her local unit, stated, "Harriet shows her passion and love for the DFL in many different ways. She dances, she laughs, she shares her energy and talent with us all." Harriet Wishnick is like the wild blooming prairies of Minnesota. Although very rare to find, she's a true treasure that gives back to the DFL. Harriet loves to volunteer, tirelessly fighting for feminist and progressive values. Please join me in welcoming Harriet Wishnick to the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. The next presenter will be Tammy Shevlin.
We are very fortunate to have our very own DFL historian, Jules Goldstein, who nominated our next honoree. Myrtle Agnes Kane, one of this year's Women of Distinction and one of the first 4 women to serve in the Minnesota legislature, was born in Minneapolis in 1894. She was born to Irish immigrants, and she was only in her 20s when she devoted herself to the suffrage movement. After meeting Alice Paul, founder of the National Women's Party, Myrtle Kane became the co-founder of the Minnesota branch, the Minnesota Women's Party. On August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, granting women the right to vote. In 1922, Myrtle Kane, along with 3 other women, was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives as one of the first generation of American women legislators. Kane, known as the flapper legislator because of her modern attitude and style of dress, worked as a professional union organizer and was president of the Women's Trades Union of Minneapolis at the time she was elected to the legislature. She had a strong stand on living wages and the welfare of workers. As a legislator representing Hennepin County in the 28th District, she made an impression with an anti-masking bill, which made it a misdemeanor for members of organizations, including the Ku Klux Klan, to appear in public concealing their identity or wearing masks. Kane also sponsored the first Equal Rights Amendment introduced in the Minnesota legislature. Despite the bill's defeat, Kane continued to work in support of equal rights throughout her entire life. Myrtle Kane narrowly lost her re-election in 1924, and after leaving her elected position, she created a lifelong career as a political staff assistant, first in the Farmer Laborer Party and then in the DFL Party. Her dedication to public service saw her in many positions over the years, oftentimes blazing the trail as the first woman to hold such a position. She worked in the offices of Congressman Roy Weir and U.S. Senator Eugene McCarthy. She was the business representative of Women's Telephone Workers. She was a delegate to the Central Labor Union, an organizer for the State Federation of Labor. She was an active part of the organizing of the Working People's Political League. She was secretary of the Hennepin County Central Committee. She was chairwoman of the First Ward DFL Club and also chairwoman of the 3rd Congressional District. She coordinated activities of the Hennepin County DFL Central Committee in the campaign for the election of Hubert H. Humphrey to the U.S. Senate, and she was an active participant of the campaign of Hubert Humphrey for mayor of Minneapolis. She served as the housing consultant in Mayor Humphrey's office, and she was appointed by then-Governor Floyd Olson as deputy hotel inspector, the first woman appointed to this commission, a position where she acquired a passion for issues of public health. She lobbied in Congress for bills affecting the welfare of women, and she served on various state committees, including the Labor, Public Health and Hospitals, and Public Welfare and Social Legislation committees. And this by no means is an exhaustive list of her work. Myrtle Kane is one of 25 Minnesota women who are commemorated in the Women's Suffrage Memorial Garden on the grounds of the Minnesota State Capitol in St. Paul. And in 1973, then-Governor Wendell R. Anderson, citing that, quote, Myrtle Kane worked with dedication, integrity, and compassion throughout her life to translate liberal goals and objectives, particularly those concerning equal rights for women and equal rights for all Americans, into reality, proclaimed February 12, 1973 as Myrtle Kane Day in Minnesota. Kane, who never married, was a lifelong activist for the causes that were her passion. She continued to support women's causes, and as late as 1973 testified for the Equal Rights Amendment in Washington, D.C. She died on February 6, 1980, in the same North Minneapolis home that she had lived in when she served in the legislature 57 years earlier. Without women like Myrtle Cain and the many other women who fought and continue to fight for the right of all Minnesota citizens' voices to be heard, we would most likely not be here today honoring other remarkable women who have given so much to our state. Myrtle Cain was indeed a woman of distinction. And now to introduce the Rising Star Awards, Julie Byrel.
Over the years, our rising stars of the DFL party have lived up to their title. Our winners have quickly emerged as the leaders of the party today. In the past, our rising stars have included successful Capitol lobbyists and legislative aides, top union leaders and political organizers, statewide DFL party officers, and the impressive list goes on and on. Our winners today are women that are relatively new to the DFL. These women have exhibited outstanding potential and achievement as leaders in our party and campaigns. Our rising stars are dedicated to bringing women into the DFL and working to achieve and promote DFL principles. We also recognize their ability to infuse our party with new energy and ideas. As the Women's Summit Committee selects rising stars, we keep one overriding question in mind. In another 10 years, will we be proud of this woman, her principles, and her achievements? The bar has been set quite high by our remarkable Rising Star alumni, yet we feel absolutely confident that our new rising stars will make us proud to claim them as our own. Presenting our first Rising Star Award today is committee member Naomi Lund.
Good afternoon. I would like to introduce Megan Bachmeyer, who may be young in age, but has had a consistent and tireless volunteer with the DFL. Megan's passion for learning and the dedication for her work to see more women elected and engaged in politics have identified her as a leader in her party and a rising star in the DFL. Megan grew up in Roseville, Minnesota, and received a degree in political science from Gustavus Adolphus College. She started volunteering with campaigns while still in school and as a campaign intern for Representative Terry Morrow. Megan was a tireless contributor and logged many hours as an intern for U.S. Congressman Tim Walz's office and as a legislative intern. She volunteered countless hours at the DFL state convention for the party and assisted with floor operations and logistics. One of Megan's passions is to see more young women involved and politically active, and she's worked to strengthen the Young Progressive Majority Organization with Representative John Lesch, pouring energy and passion for our party's politics. Megan went on to help as field organizer for Representative David Bly and Sandy Walschlager prior to her service as a legislative assistant. In her time with the Minnesota House of Representatives, she worked with numerous legislators and eventually became the leadership legislative assistant, assisting with the Speaker and the House Majority Leader's offices with consistent outreach and daily operations. Megan credits the encouragement of her mentors who gave her opportunities to grow in her career and as a person. One of her mentors was the former Speaker of the House, Margaret Anderson Kelleher, who gave her the opportunity to work at the Minnesota House. Megan also credits her parents because they gave her lots of support and encouragement over the year, to always pay attention to the inequalities in the world, and raised her to believe that if a person works hard, they can do anything. Representative Morrow says that in each and every instance, Megan has demonstrated remarkable intelligence, initiative, warmth, and congeniality in her work. Megan is now working as the Director of Marketing and Development for the nonprofit Political Action Committee Women Women, organization whose mission is to encourage, promote, and support pro-choice women's leadership. Megan's passion to see more people in political leadership and she would love to see more women elected to the legislature in 2012, and eventually work herself out of a job, increasing the percentage of women in all leadership levels to at least 50%. Megan Bachmeyer is an exemplary activist, a strong and youthful voice, and a true rising star in the DFL. Our next award will be presented by Nancy Schumacher.
Good afternoon. When someone is first introduced to Mary Nelson, they could be fooled by her quiet, unassuming demeanor. However, lurking just below the surface beats the heart of a warrior organizer. As one of the current associate chairs of SD 51, another rising star, Colleen Hogan, is the other associate chair. Mary organizes, organizes, and organizes. Senate District Chair Jeremy Powers is quoted as saying he has the best two people helping in his district, and they make him look good. No wonder Jeremy is such a long-term chair. Mary is in charge of the Anoka County Fall Festival, a job no normal person would want. The festival encompasses several Senate districts, and we all know that organizing Democrats can be like herding cats. But Mary, who is organizational squared, steps up to the plate with gusto, and the event has been running smoothly under her steady hand. As a retired nurse, Mary has a compassionate soul, so admired in the DFL politics while demonstrating her skills. Mary says what got her active in the DFL is the hateful bigotry she sees around her. She has given extremely qualified, passionate time to the DFL, our candidates in her hometown of Blaine. Last cycle, when a district office was open in Blaine, Mary was there almost every day, happy to do the mundane and often tedious stuff that makes our party successful. Making calls, doing data entry, doing her part for fairness and equality in this world. A side of Mary that is really cool to many is her love of motorcycles. She met her husband while he was riding his 1978 Harley lowrider. They still have the bike, but Mary is now the proud owner of a 1998 Superglide. Her husband and a group of friends go on the road every year for 2 or 3 weeks in the fall, and they've been to New Orleans and Seattle. Jeremy Powers tells the story that after Mary called a meeting for the fall festival, the other volunteers all showed up in Ford Focuses, Honda Civics, and other green cars. Up rides Mary on her full-size loud pipe Harley, no helmet, expertly kicks down the stand and quietly says, "Thank you all for coming." Once Mary raised her hand to volunteer at that first meeting, the DFL got one of the best gifts ever, a lovely, devoted woman doing her part to make this world a better place. She is indeed a rising star. Mary Nelson, welcome to the DFL Hall of Fame. Kia Steele will be our next presenter.
Mark Twain once said, "Many a small thing has been made large by the right kind of advertising." Deb Pitzrick, a rising star and advertiser by trade, has used her education in marketing to improve the visibility and presence of the DFL in her local community.
Attending her first precinct caucus in 2004, Deb embraced the leadership role of precinct officer in Eden Prairie and quickly became inspired to improve the DFL's messaging and communication. True to her background, one of her first steps was to identify voters by developing the district's first electronic database, a powerful tool that she continues to update daily. Deb recognizes the role of technology in effective communication and went on to develop the district's website and electronic newsletter and logo to further brand and bolster the DFL's presence. Her technological skills added to her success in a variety of key Senate District 42 positions: webmaster, associate chair, and campaign manager for several state legislative candidates. Deb's quest to improve communications soon led to her involvement beyond SD 42. Currently, she volunteers on messaging and framing committees both in the 3rd Congressional District and at the state level. In CD3, she has played a pivotal role in the development of pocketprogressive.org, an online resource for organizers, candidates, and volunteers. Through the Frame Shop, a section of the website aimed at educating activists on current events and proper framing, Deb has been able to further demystify the power of communication and offer solutions to creating a message that resonates among voters. Deb not only contributes her talents to the DFL, but also fosters those of others. She created strategic committees in the Senate District 42, allowing more DFLers to share and develop their skills while spreading the workload. As the district's technology guru, she has trained volunteers to carry on the many communication mechanisms that she has established. Also, she has encouraged the involvement of youth by working with DFL student groups in the high schools. Deb is a tireless volunteer devoted to the success of the DFL and is constantly seeking methods to improve the DFL's campaign strategies. As Senate District 42 Chair, Norbert Gurnis put it quite simply, Deb is the backbone of SD 42. Please join me in congratulating Deb Pitzrick, a 2011 Rising Star. The next award will be presented by Jen Emmerich.
Good afternoon. Frustration with the political landscape often fuels passion and drives frustration to talk about getting involved. What makes Deb Sheets, Rising Star, different is that she took action when she was frustrated with the leadership in the late 2000s. Fueled by her opposition to war, her passion for human rights and education, and her aim to eliminate puppy mills, she started door knocking as part of Women on Wednesday and Women for Obama. She was also very involved in Organizing for America and made hours and hours of phone calls promoting healthcare reform, Wall Street reform, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the DREAM Act, energy reform, and the list goes on. Furthermore, in addition to her ruthless door knocking and phone calling campaign efforts, she recruited other effective women to participate, which, as you all know, is effective in any campaign. She truly is a crusader for women and for the DFL. This absolute rock star, as one individual referred to her as, grew up in Fridley and currently resides in Blaine. After high school, she pursued a degree in nursing and has been caring for people ever since. Though she didn't get involved in politics until later in life, Deb has always been a public servant, having worked for the state hospital for 10 years. Currently, she works with mentally ill people at People Incorporated, and when she isn't lobbying for the DFL, this animal lover is with her family, her kids, Eric and Kate, her husband, John, her dogs, and her bird. In addition to her national campaigning efforts, Deb also serves a critical role in the local level. She is the director for Senate District 51 Central Committee, a precinct chair, and a first-class fundraiser. After only a few minutes with Deb, I could tell that she had a great deal of campaigning stories. One of my favorites was when she talked about being chased out of one guy's yard during a door-knocking effort. That didn't deter her, though. It only fueled her further. When Terrell Clark ran against Michelle Bachmann, she said that she wrecked her knees. She did so much door knocking. In her words, she went crazy. and she did so in spite of dealing with significant health issues associated with her fibromyalgia. In addition to being an integral part of the Terrell Clark campaign, Deb worked on the Tinklenburg, Dayton, Sean Hamilton, and Tim Tilbury campaigns. Please join me in thanking and congratulating Deb Sheets, rising star, for all of her hard work and her efforts for women and the DFL. Your last award, or the last award, will be presented by Jackie Stevenson.
Each year, folks, I am filled with joy when it comes time to present a new rising star to the DFL Hall of Fame. This time, it's Jennifer Nelson Thorpe. Jennifer's background is so right for this honor. Imagine being born to a mother, Kathy Nelson, longtime executive committee director, member of the executive committee, current co-chair of the State Platform Commission, and also currently in her second term as a member of the Eden Prairie City Council. And a dad like our dear departed Rick, longtime Congressional District 3 Associate Chair, who led us through many conventions, Central Committee meetings, State Constitution Commission legal questions, and was our general fixer-upper of all state quandaries. Jennifer's gene pool could take no other turn. Anyone in CD3 politics for the last 15 years knows of Jennifer as the 10-year-old who first helped with a floor layout for a congressional district convention. The next morning, she sold me a donut and a cup of coffee while staffing the food table. Thus began our long-term friendship and encounter. Jennifer, after graduating from Eden Prairie High School, attended the University of Minnesota, receiving a degree in environmental science from the Ag School. It was there that she met Chris Thorpe. They married, moved to Arizona for a short period, and returned to Minnesota, where they produced Alex, who is a healthy, bouncing 2-year-old. They settled in CD2 and became active. No wonder, as Chris also had a strong interest in things political, thank heavens. He currently serves on the Constitution Commission, following in Rick's footsteps. Jennifer has participated in campaigns over this entire period. She has always been, according to Marge Hoffa, a workhorse and not a show horse, getting things done and not seeking attention for herself. Jennifer is a CD2 director and, according to Jeannie Thomas, volunteers to do whatever is needed, serving as coordinator for silent and live auctions, working on other fundraisers, coordinating lunch for at least 2 conventions, and all while serving as a delegate. She'll appear at Senate or Congressional District member meetings these days bearing fresh baked goods, a talent she inherits from Rick's mother. I didn't know about that until I talked to her mother. I've kidded Jeannie Thomas that Jennifer and Chris are only on loan to CD2. But sorry, Jean, they recently purchased a home in Southwest Minneapolis, so we all have to give them over to CD5 for a time. I bet they'll be back in 3 at some point. We always hope that our rising stars remain active. This time, it's a given. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Nelson Thorpe to the DFL Women's Hall of Fame as a rising star. Oh, here they come. And now back to Kathy and Jen.
At this time, we would like to acknowledge some of the hardest working, most generous in spirit, time, and energy, and one of the most dedicated groups of women in our party, the members of the DFL Women's Hall of Fame. or Women's Summit Committee, excuse me. Many of these women are DFL Women's Hall of Fame members themselves. This beautiful event could not happen without their collective effort. We would ask that the 2011 Women's Summit Committee to stand and be honored. We have co-chair Sandy Anderson, Tammy Teskey Austin, Julie Darrell, Jenny Fisher, Naomi Lund, Kathleen Murphy, Betsy O'Berry, Teresa O'Neill, Krista Parkin, Nancy Schumacher, Elizabeth Scott, Alice Seifert, Tammy Shevlin, Kia Steele, and Jackie Stevenson. Every year, after honoring these remarkable women, we hope that all of you here today feel as we do, inspired by their stories, in awe of their achievements, and moved to action. At this time, it's also appropriate to acknowledge the contributions and sacrifices of those significant to all of our winners. As most people in this room know, political dedication can sometimes be a lifestyle choice. To all of those that care about the DFL women in their lives, we thank you for your understanding and your support throughout all the missed meals, the lawn signs you've had to maneuver around, and the tears of joy and not so much joy you've had to wipe away over the years.
As you leave today, please think about women you know that should be honored in next year's event. There are nomination forms at each table for the 2012 Hall of Fame event that you can fill out and submit, or you can visit our website at www.dflwomen'shalloffame.com, and you can download the form there. On your table are packets of seeds that encourage you to honor DFL women today and mentor DFL women leaders of tomorrow. Remember, honor today, mentor tomorrow. These are words to live by and a key to the Women's Summit Committee values. Thank you so much for coming today. I screwed up. One last thing, I almost forgot. Thank you for your gracious attendance today. We would ask that all of our honorees stay for groups photos in the room where you had your photos taken earlier. In addition, we have videotaped today's program, and you may request a copy of the DVD at the registration table. We wish everyone a wonderful 2011, and we look forward to seeing you at our 13th annual celebration in 2012. Please join our committee in one last tribute by raising your glasses and offering a toast. To all wonderful DFL women. Thank you.
Thank you.